Hey guys, so this is Rebecca from Rebecca Joy W. Formerly I create Therefore I Am on Tumblr and various other Tum blogs. I guess here to tell you how easily it is to crop out the mess from your room with selective holding of a camera. That, and also to talk about this rug that I am currently laying on, which I made about a year ago for the art assignment. And as like a 1 year check-in, they want everyone to talk about like how these rugs have fit in with people's lives. Yeah, so the weird thing about this kind of rug is how much it's just become kind of part of my life and my room without me thinking about it. Like for while I was working on this thing, which took me I guess about a month, it's rather large, as you can kind of see. Um, it was like a project that I had to work on every day. As someone who usually knits, this kind of supplanted my knitting, kind of crocheting, day to day working on this rug, and it was such a big part of my life then. And it had this physical evidence of being part of my life. Like I used all this woven fabric. Um, so if you cut woven fabric in strips, it always kind of gives off these little like hairs. I don't know what to call them. Um, but kind of little bits of the threads that got cut. And so those threads would be all over me when I was working on the rug. Like I would work on it for a couple hours and then stand up and just like all of them would fall off my clothes. Or even when I wasn't working on them, I would find them like attached to my clothes, or like I sat on some so they're like stuck to my butt, or like I would find them in my hair. They would like follow me to work, follow me everywhere, just evidence that I was working on this rug. Even like rolling it up and taking it into a new house, it left some of those pieces behind. It's doing that less now because it's gotten older and I think all those pieces have finally kind of fallen off. But it was just like such a big part of the time I was working on it, and just something that I always showed evidence I was working on because it was physically attached to my body like cat hair. And like part of why I started working on it like was definitely for the art assignment. I love doing fiber projects, but also I have a slight bit of necessity because it was moving into the house where I live now. And our landlord was very insistent on us having rugs covering, I think, 80% of the floor, which is not what ended up happening, but I guess she's fine with it. And so I needed something to cover the floor, and this art assignment just ended up being like a perfect timing. Um, so it was done like as an art project, but also as a necessity. Like I very much did it to have something that I could put on my floor, to please my landlord, but also to not be living on hardwood. And congratulations, you just saw the like trash on my floor. Um, yeah, but that's kind of reminds me of like how it just, now that it's part of my floor, it's the thing that covers my floor. It's no longer this physical, mental, like constantly aware of thing in my life. Like I'll kind of forget that it's here. It's on the floor. I'm walking on it, but it still shows the evidence. Like I have some kind of white stripes in it, and the one like particularly where I'm laying on right now, you can see the dirt in the white stripes of where I've stepped on it, like the dirt from my shoes, or like my cabinet right here. Um, is like where I keep my makeup. So there's places where there's like little pink spots of like blush that's been dropped, or evidence that this is part of my life now. Um, and yeah, just something I forget about, but it's not leaving hairs all over me anymore. Um, but I don't. I guess that kind of reminds me of like all fiber projects. Like it's kind of fitting that I'm sitting next to this quilt. That covers my bed, which is also on the floor because I'm poor and don't own a bed. That my great aunt made for me, and I think of like this quilt as like an evidence of, her life. There's all these little scraps of, other pieces of clothing that she made. Um, there's some, I don't know if I can find any in frame, but of like Smurfs fabric or like various other fabrics, that not all the types of fabrics or anything match, but it's kind of an evidence of all the things that were going on in her life when she was making the scraps she collected, and then it like became a physical object that could be passed on and passed on as kind of an evidence of all the things she worked on and kind of her life. And I'm sure after she finished the quilt, it wasn't something she thought of like having been made, or like thought about the process of making much after that, but it still kind of holds that that feeling of being made, of being handmade, you know, like this rug's still going to mean a lot more to me than one I just buy at IKEA, because like I made this, you know, and I can see where I've started to destroy it from walking on it or dropping stuff on it. I think I bled on it at one time. And you know, this quilt also has like the evidence of wear. You know, the edges are kind of falling apart because it's, I don't know, 60 years old, but still important. And I guess, I don't know, that's something I think, as someone who does a lot of fiber crafts, something I think about a lot, how while you're making it, the process means so much. You know, you're spending so much time, like physically knitting or physically hand crocheting or sewing this one thing. But once it's done, all that, the memory of all that work kind of disappears, but I guess the emotion behind it stays behind a little bit. You know, I don't like, I guess if I'm like knitting a sweater when I'm frustrated, you can't like feel the frustration, but you still kind of know the like effort and the time and the love that goes into something like that. So the evidence of the process, I think, like starts to infect the room that it's in, instead of like the evidence of the process being something I physically carry with me, you know, on my clothing, but from like the house that I'm going to move into next when my lease ends here or something like that, is something like the evidence of all that time I spent over a year ago making this is still going to go through, not through leaving specks of it, but just the kind of energy or the like knowledge that like I made this and I'm carrying it with me. It is mine, and I care about it so much more than something I could have bought at IKEA. Yeah, I think, yeah, that's one of the things I've learned from this. It's okay if you forget, like, so much of creating to me is about the process, and sometimes it's okay if you forget the process, because it's still, the evidence of it is still there, in a slightly different way, but it's there. Also, welcome to my tiny room. That's a wall. That's my bed and other wall. Like, you can literally see my cabinet and my bed are a head's width away from each other. DC! Woo! Yeah, this has been my first video message.